Hello there. I'm going to look at two recent cinema releases, both sequels, so they are tied to what I've just talked about. Um, so John Wick 4 and Shazam 2. Now, it's quite a difference in quality of these two films, as you may have noticed if you looked at reviews. One's very good and one is not as good. But neither is terrible. None of them are Pacific Rim Uprising. uh, but yeah, there's a difference. This is going to be fairly short, so I'm not going to spoil the territory or anything. I'm just going to talk roughly about the films. This is going to be fairly simple. John Wick 4 is how you do a sequel where you build upon what's come before because you have the same people involved through all four films. They all love it. The actors all love it. They want to put the effort in to make it good. They're going to put the time in to make it good. They're going to spend time in the script. They're going to spend time in getting stunts right. They're going to spend time in the cinematography. They're going to spend time on making sure everyone's in the same film. They're going to spend time on the production to make sure everything's done properly. They're going to spend time on the post-production to make sure all the actual action is edited properly and sound mixed properly so it has impact so that you don't have massive gaps of what you think should be there. It's people who care about what they're doing. Again, unlike Pacific Rim Uprising, which was, I don't know if it was finished. It looked like it was finished by CGI. Uh, this one is just really terrific because it does have a conclusion, but I'm not going to say what it is because it has been building for 3 films and now it all comes down to this final story, which is left. There is like a thing of you can go further. There is a way out to go further, but if it doesn't, it feels an end. Like the definite ending they give can be finagled out of quite easily, but it's still if they don't want to go any further, that's the end. That's very satisfying. This is as far as I'm going to go with the ending. But the film itself is very satisfying because it does go fully into the Sergio Leone style of the plot's the plot, but we're not here for the plot. The plot just gets us from one set piece to the next and one weird character beat to the next. This is basically a film where you have like 3 lead characters who move through the film, and each time they go to a different location, you have a guest spot from either a supporting friend of John Wick or a supporting villain. So it's like between the action scenes, you get dialogue scenes, you get some humor, you get a lot of just enjoyable work with a lot of actors who know how to behave in a genre film. So it is just wonderful. And you've got 3 lead characters. One's John Wick, who's the lead character. He's like the Clint Eastwood of the film. But you also have Donnie Yen doing Lee Van Cleef. I mean, they say he's doing Zatoche because he's playing blind fighter, which is, yeah, he's doing that. But there's also elements of Lee Van Cleef in here as well. If you're going to do the Sergio Leone thing, this is a dignified character who is in a world of with people who are beneath him, and who he has to deal with people he'd rather not deal with, and people he thinks are morons, which is very much Lee Van Cleef character for a few dollars more. And even in the films where he plays villains, he still has that kind of grace to him. So Donnie Yen brings that to the film. And there's another character who's got a dog who is tracking John Wick down and wait until the price of his head gets big enough for him to actually collect. So he causes mayhem by knocking off people who are trying to kill John Wick. So John Wick can cause chaos, so his price of his head can go up. And he's got a dog. Normally it's John Wick who's the dog. He's a dog who doesn't like John Wick and who's been trained to kill him. And so there's a nice little dance between those two of John Wick's character knows what he's up to. And it's like, oh, that's logical. that's a logical thing to do. So he's telling the guy, it'll be tough for you collecting this one. So there's that element. So those three characters dance around each other throughout. So they're all in every location, and they're all going around each other. So you've got John Wick as the guy who cannot be killed, and you've got these other two characters who are floating around and interacting with him. And basically, Donnie Yen's character cannot let the tracker kill John Wick because that causes problems for him. He has to not kill John Wick, otherwise he's got a family member in danger. The guy who wants the money cannot let Donnie Yen kill John Wick because he wants the money. John Wick would rather not get killed by either of them and may have to take them out. And they both have, and Donnie Yen's character was a friend of John Wick, so they have complicated feelings with the situation. They also both understand what the situation is. Like Donnie Yen has to protect his family member. So that creates a good tension throughout the film, where it's not personal, but they are professionals, and they're going to act professionally. And that's wonderful because it gives the writers and director and the actors a lot to do. They don't have to make it a grudge fight. They can be respectful to each other while still being capable of killing each other. That works wonderfully. And that's why it's a 3-hour film, because it actually stops to have those moments. That's why it's such a long running time. There's just as much action as in other films, but the pauses have a lot more breathing space. And it doesn't ramp up quickly at the start either. It takes a long time, then it goes. There's a certain point in the first action scene where John Wick uses nunchucks. And that's the moment the film kicks into a higher gear, because you want to see him use nunchucks. As soon as you see him use them, you're like, I've always wanted to see this. Even though I didn't really know that until I saw it. But also the film is like, almost that's the thing where, okay, we're warmed up now. Let's really go for it. And you get some crazy fights. So the first section's in Japan, at another hotel, another continental hotel, which is the hotel for all these hitmen. John Wick shows up because he knows the owner for information. The high table who are after John Wick know he's gone there and would rather destroy the entire hotel than let anyone live who maybe died John Wick, because they're trying to destroy his reputation now because he's stood up to them so many times and made them look so foolish. They have to destroy the myth of John Wick before, otherwise they've got problems because other people might start going against them. So they'd rather show the strength and destroy their own hotel rather than let them live. Well, they destroy their own hotel, but of course John Wick lives. But that's the first section. So this is where the him and his old friend get to talk. Him and his old friend's daughter gets to tell him, look, you're causing us havoc by coming here. Like, don't be so selfish. This is all on you. So she tells him somebody has to hear. Then all hell breaks loose, and we have a terrific action scene that goes on for a while, but it really works. And you get that's the action scene where it's all set up. You're actually setting everyone up. That's why it's not in high gear yet. You're setting everyone up with what they can do, who they are, what their tactics are. This is the way they set up with Johnny Yen. Does not run in guns blazing. He just lets other people make mistakes first. And he just waits and lets them get killed. And then he makes a move. And so he's the smart one. And you also get the tracker, how he's making his move, what his tactics are. You get John Wick's tactics as well. And you get the tactics of the villains who are after John Wick and how brutal they're going to be, even to their own people. So everything's set up there. And as soon as they get them to come out, that's where the setup section's gone, and now we're going into full on action movie. Then we go to Germany, where John Wick has to deal with his old family, who are the Russians, who are in Germany, who are the Russian element in Germany. And this is where he deals with Scott Adkins as Killer, who's this club owner who's also an assassin. And it's where they all have their big meeting around this table where Killer's the host, and you've got all the three main players, Kenny Reeves, Donnie Yen, and the Tracker. and it gives him a chance to talk. And Scott Adkins was way over the top in this part. Sanada plays the guy in the first one, but here's Scott Adkins doing his bit, his kind of way over the top section. He's a villain, and they're just waiting for him and John Wick to have the fight, and for them to get rid of everyone else so they have the fight. And the fight lives up to the whole thing of what you expect, what you wanted. And then we fight, once it's dealt with, we're going to head into the final fight, which is going to be the big, balls out fight in Paris for the finale, where John Wick has to reach a certain destination at a certain time, and he can solve his problems. If he doesn't make it, he will die. And this is where they go all out crazy for, probably for an hour, just the non-stop action scene. But they really pace it well, and they really care. They change it around so that you have one kind of action scene for a bit, then you switch it to another kind of action scene, then another kind of action scene, and there's always a sense of humor, always a sense of absurdity, so there's always a sense of it changing around so you don't feel the same thing again and again and again. And this is the point where Bill Skarsgård, who's been a villain throughout, this is where he finally comes to fore. He's been manipulating things before there, but now this is where he comes to fore. And it's just terrific. It's just wonderful. And the whole film just has this wonderful sense of subtlety. It knows how silly it is, but also takes itself seriously enough for the film to work. It's not like the recent Thor where there's jokes everywhere, or Marvel generally where there's jokes everywhere. This is, there's humour, but we're still taking it seriously, so that the plot can work, so that there's actual consequences. But there's going to be some humour. There's going to be things where stuff happens. There's going to be twists and motivations that don't reverse the threat, but add little details to the threat and details to what's going on. And the finale is very satisfying, and it does have quite a few nods to Sergio Leone. And it's just a wonderful film. It's just a wonderful ending. I still like number 3 more, just one viewing the fourth one. I still like 3 more at the moment, but we'll see what it is once I've seen it a few times. I think 3 just had the killer variations of tons of really great action scenes. I think this one is a bit more straightforward. It's funnier when it's more expansive, but it's just a different thing. But I'm the guy who prefers for a few dollars more to Good, Bad, and Ugly, so it's just my taste. So John Wick 4 is just wonderful. Shazam 2, on the other hand, is fine. That's the best way to put it. It's fine, but it doesn't need to exist. And the big problem with it is you had your introduction to the character. That was fine. The cast everything well. Everything was good. And then you expect me to go and do the Black Adam thing because that's what the logical thing should be. Now you have the problem where The Rock wanted to do the Black Adam film. And even though it made no sense for them to split it up, Black Adam was introduced by himself without Shazam, and Shazam suddenly had to do a sequel without Black Adam, and everyone just wanted those two to get together, and that is they've got the interest going. So all you had to do is put these two characters together, and you'd be fine. Instead, they did it separate, and you had 2 films that did not do as well as they should have. And 2 films, quality-wise, which are not as good as they should have been. And if you put them together, it would have been a lot better. Because these characters needed someone like the Black Adam to actually shine. Instead, they've got all these gods they're fighting against, and they're fun characters who can do fun stuff. But they're not dealing with villains who are it rubs against them in interesting ways. It's just villains who are just villains here, and they don't really work. They're fine. They've got good actors playing them. Helen Mirren plays the lead villain. Lucy Liu plays her sister sidekick and have the younger sister as well. But they don't have that much to do, and it's just one of those things. It's like the problem is they've got these villains, but the villains don't really relate to Black Adam, to Shazam in a way that really is fascinating in some way. They're just villains. And if they're up against Black Adam, and the Black Adam character and situation in his first movie had a whole section of superheroes which should have been Shazam. like send Shazam in against Black Adam when he comes up because of the same type of hero. It's like, why would they not? Why did they just not do that? It would have helped that film because, you know, it needed specific heroes to go up against Black Adam rather than generic ones, and they were tied together anyway. So they're all in both in this world. Why wouldn't they send them there? And also, Black Adam's a character who lost his child. He's trying to live up to his child, and these are children who are playing superhero. You had a whole dynamic you could have done that would have worked a lot better. Plus, you're sending these kids into a war zone, and how would you deal with that? You'd have a much better dynamic for both characters. It's like, why didn't they just say to Rock, look, just do the film, put them both together? It's going to work a lot better. And then you can go to your Superman film. It would have worked better. It's like basic writing would have told you you have to put characters who gel against each other. So instead, in Black Adam, you have characters who are not that interested in going against Black Adam, you don't care about. And Shazam, you get these characters who are fun characters going against characters who are played by people who know what they're doing, but they're not that interested because they're not given that much to do. And the dynamic of the Shazam in this one is he's holding on to his family too tight because he's scared they're going to leave him, which he could have done easily against Black Adam. Instead, Shazam is just a character in crisis in this situation that does this disconnected from it, and it just feels like there's two films going along at the same time, but nothing's really bouncing off each other in interesting ways. So you have charming bits, but you've also these blockbuster bits. And this is a film where the charming bits are much better than the blockbuster bits. The blockbuster bits are boring. There's lots of fighting and things blowing up. And it's like, yeah. But this charming stuff of them hanging out to each other and their neuroses were really enjoyable. And it's like, if you'd done more of this, I'd have been much happier. Instead, you have all these CGI fights no one cares about. And Black Adam had all these CGI fights and had character scenes that no one cared about. It's like they're both got different strengths and weaknesses, which are not better together. I've still no idea why they weren't together beyond ego. That's the only reason, no one's sticking up and saying, no, we can't do this first. And this is stupid in the right mode sense not to do that. But, Shazam 2 it's one of those ones like, you didn't need to make it if you didn't have a passion for what you're making. That's the problem a lot of sequels nowadays is people don't seem to all these films, it's like you're making this because you've been employed to make it. You're not actually making it because you care that much. And it comes through the film. People can sense that in films all the time, and people wonder, why did my film not succeed? Because we could see in the film you don't want to be there. You're doing this for your mortgage, or you're doing this for something. You're not doing it for caring of this. Because you feel in this film, Sam 2, the director liked the character stuff. And when it came to CGI, it was like, I've got to do this bloody stuff. Can you please let me have a monster or something, or a corridor that's a bit darkly lit and have some jokes around it? He was much happier with that. But if you actually had to do all the CGI stuff and fighting, you'd tell the director's heart wasn't in it. It just looks like it. I'll do that because it's always been done that way. You just sense that he wasn't there. And it's just that kind of stuff gets really old. And that's been dominating a lot of films recently, this sense of directors don't want to be there. They just don't like this film they're making. They don't want to be there at all. And this film just has that in spades. So, it was a film. It was way too expensive for what it needed to be. It could have been better with half the money, but all the effect shots, all the big effect scenes taken out and have comedy instead. And just that would have covered the people who want to see the film. The people who didn't want to see the film wouldn't have gone to see the film anyway. The people who want to see a Shazam movie would have been much better off with a more charming, smaller movie. Instead, we've got this film that doesn't really work, but it's not really bad either. It's just inoffensive, and it's just like, it's not good enough to make you want to rewatch it very often, but it's not bad enough to hate. It's just like, this could have been a lot better if you just used your common sense. So, that's two different approaches to sequels. The Camion approach that actually focuses in on what this needs to be, or they try everything and, oh God, we can't do what we should have done in the first place approach. We'll do everything but the thing that would have satisfied people. That's what we'll do with Shazam 2 and Black Adam. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm not going to go on any longer. Hope this is fun for you. I'll see you later. This is my last of these little live streams for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.